Yo, what is up, everybody? And it's time to steal a bit. So I'm doing a Twitter thread video because I made a couple Twitter questions that I wanted to go over at some point, but I couldn't because of time and blah, 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 blah. Then I forgot about it. But here we are again. So now we're going to go into some Twitter thread questions that I've asked on Twitter, obviously. And let's just jump into them because it's going to be a double header because I have two things I want to talk about. And I didn't get a chance to film an individual video for each, so we're doing two with one. So we're going to start with the question. All right, let's Twitters, name me a more iconic duo. Oh, I said Foamy and Snark. This is an iconic water combo that gets you to any water, lunar, Elestral. That, I mean, between Joblin and Draking, like there's some good options in that space. Additionally, it could also potentially get you cards like High Tide or Rockin' a Hard Place if you're playing other decks or need some other support cards, etc. So there's tons of options, and it's a really cool water combo that I think is pretty iconic for, if not now, at least the Moonrise meta, because I'm a little out of date on these. So let's see what everybody else said, starting with our boy Trish. Werepop Poseidon, I have no idea what this is supposed to be. This is like Draking coded to me, or maybe Joblin coded. Lunar water aggro punchy face, I guess. I don't know what you're getting here. Sure. Din's Coder immediately showed me up with the most iconic correct answer is Sparkit and Zeus, and this is definitely up there for most iconic duo in Elestrals. Sparkit plus Zeus was a bane on base set. It was just like I won on turn one and you don't even know it yet for 5 turns later. Very powerful combo, something that was just constantly discussed in base set, and yeah, Target eventually got banned, but this is very iconic, at least for base set. Dire, trigger and battle phase twins, Ursier attacking something, pop a thing, get another Ursier attacking something. Oh wait, we just made a trio instead of a duo by getting out a third Ursier. So close, Dire, we'll try again next time. Cobalt Sanderson with Celestial, Rise from the Ashes, that due to this deck, we immediately saw Rise from, and not really. Now, I have made Solar Reanimator lists in the past. If you go back like over a year ago to my Farragesh Reanimator deck from Daybreak, I said that if you have any good Lunar Elestral worth bringing back from the Underworld, it's consistent and easy to get those cards from your deck into your Underworld by things of like First Light and Comagma to put it on top and then draw discard it. So you just needed a powerful 3-drop Solar Elestral, just a powerful Solar Elestral in general, that you wanted to put it in the Underworld, and you could make a really powerful deck out of it. Farragesh obviously into Moonrise got limited to 1, making the deck even more inconsistent, but Cobalt Sanderson said, hold on, by the end of Moonrise, let's go with Celestial Reanimator, making a basically like 6-7 cost combo that destroyed your opponent's board and drew you like 3 or 4 cards. Incredibly powerful combo. I don't know about iconic, but definitely funny and interesting seeing it banned immediately, unintentionally, for the crimes of Blistrix not being a viable deck anymore, but really cool while it was lasted. All of like 2 weeks we were talking about it. MBT, Hurricane and Nobby. This is basically Nobby, you could kind of replace it with any other kind of attack trigger or destroy trigger Elestral. So this could be Hurricane Nobby, Hurricane Hydrake, Hurricane Viserys, Hurricane Blazerous combo. Any big swingy attack Elestral plus Hurricane is incredibly iconic and powerful for a lot of what Elestrals is doing. I do like the answer, but I think the Elestral could be anything, not quite iconic in that sense, but Hurricane plus attack trigger, sure, we'll give you that. Dimax, Galaxy Gorgon's Gaze. I think you have the wrong counter rune there, but it should be PTA. Galaxy PTA, even if it's like the meme that PTA doesn't work very well in Galaxy, it's meme iconic. So I think PTA would have been a better response, Galaxy PTA, than Galaxy Gorgons. But decent answer. Log, our resident Antitan combo enjoyer, Ardbud Spectaris. This is a really cool combo. I don't know if it's iconic because it's like a B tier deck or maybe like a high B tier deck with Ardbud Spectaris. This gets you into Antitan with just 1 suppressed card on your opponent's board. So if you play Artemis or Dense Fog, suppress a card on your opponent's board, you go Ardbud, search Champion Spectress, cast Spectress, pop it with Ardbud, ascend to Ardvarum, search another Spectaris with Ardvarum, pop that Spectaris with your Ardvarum, get to Antitan, discard some other bugs in your hand to destroy things on board. Very powerful and explosive combo, and something that the Bug Box deck really wanted and needed to be successful. The deck is decent. I've been playing it a lot in Clash, and I have a pretty good win rate with it. but iconic is tough. It is an iconic combo in that deck, but not necessarily for Elestrals. Iconic duo Eddie and Ashrabbit. Yeah, this is something that really, I think, encapsulates a lot of what Elestrals is. So Ashrabbit is somewhat divisive, but extremely popular and noted and like iconic for Elestrals as a game piece. And Eddie is just probably one of the most fan favorite cards. Just look at him. His name is Eddie. Super chill, funny, good card as well. So yeah, these are iconic Elestrals. Not necessarily an iconic duo, but a two very iconic Elestrals cards in the game. So really cool in that sense. JT said Urseer and losing. So Ursa's and losing. Yep, probably. I mean, Ursa's definitely struggle in the meta, and that's fine that they struggle. They're not like the best deck in the format, but they do have some powerful new tools in Firestorm. And in Firestorm, they're still not quite getting there. But Ursas are a fan favorite deck archetype because look at the little baby bears, and they're so cool. But yeah, they do struggle a lot in the meta. So yeah, bears and losing, but unfortunately not an iconic card unless you can find a card named L. Zane and Sonicor Bag of Winds. This is a throwback to base set. Sonicor Bag of Winds was actually the 5th best deck, like Sonicor Control. It was a Water Thunder deck. It was probably the best, or 5th best deck in base set Elestrals from Premier events, with the 5th most tops / wins in any Premier, being Earth is the most represented deck for Premier wins in base set. Then it was Thunder. Then it was Wind Pantera. Then it was Krakatuga Burn was the 4th best deck, and this was the 5th best deck, which was a Control Water Thunder deck that tried to get Sonicor and Bag of Winds on the board because most people's removal reliable cards were counter runes like Shield and PTA, but also Earthquake and Royal were not limited yet, so most people relied on those to remove their threat. So if you get Sonicor Bag of Winds out, all of a sudden you can't Earthquake, you can't Royal it, you can't target it with Zeus. So realistically, the only way to out the Sonicor consistently was like a Boom Bat effect, or like Demeter plus Viserys. So you had to be Earth to pump your own dude since you couldn't target the Sonicor. Made this a pretty scary deck in base set. It's not that great. It would probably not. It's not great now. We don't see it anymore. It was an artifact of its time of, hey, counter runes are really prevalent. Invoke removal is really prevalent. Let's build a combo and build a deck around this combo that gets me there. So you just play Foamy Mustation. Foamy would get something, Misenchanted with Thunder, or you play Mustation turn 1 with Thunder and protect it, and then you just go Sonicor the next turn, get a Bag Wins on it, win the game from there. Very annoying control deck, very meta relevant to base set, kind of iconic. If you were back there, you had to be aware of it and play Boom Bats or whatnot. Electric Zeus, probably even more iconic, I would say, than Sparket Zeus, because Electric Zeus really kind of hit a lot of the format going just like I'm a 7 attacker that makes all my other attackers better because I'm reducing your stats. You could argue Electric Demeter is also up there, but Electric Zeus, very iconic, very powerful, and Electric did get banned right before the Zeus deck came out. If the Electric was here with the Zeus deck, we'd probably see a lot more Champions of Zeus decks running around. Pretty iconic on the Sparket Zeus combo level stuff from base set as well, making it even kind of more long-term iconic. So good answer. And last but not least, I have Shurit Cryoblasting Brewlock. I'm missing context here. Also, Brewlock's not an Celestial last I checked, so not an iconic, or not even a card, not an iconic duo. I guess. I mean, I just say iconic duo. I didn't say cards. So Brewlock and Cryoblast. I don't know. You guys let me know. There's context here I am missing. I'm assuming because Comalis got Cryoblasted every time or something when he's playing Looter. You guys will have to let me know. Alright, so now that we're done with the first thread, or rather the second one chronologically, we're doing the first one I asked, which I think this is a really interesting question. And it was a little bit of a loaded question because the prompt maybe could have been better, but is what's the most Gorgons-able Elestral? A lot of people are going to say Elichick. I personally think it's got to be Tadpuff, because the moment your opponent goes special cast Tadpuff, you go hit it with the Gorgons. You have to write that in there because otherwise they get priority back and they're going to go, cool, ascend into something even more threatening that Gorgons probably doesn't answer anymore, like Draking or Curibus or Lakagon or any 2-drop water-based Elestral. So nothing good comes out of Tadpuff being special. You go Gorgons immediately. So what is the Elestral you have to Gorgons on the spot every single time? That's the question. So we have MBT giving us 3 answers going Galaxy, Boombat, Elechick. Galaxy, not necessarily need to be Gorgons. In most decks, it's just a 5 attacker that doesn't get hit by Tsunami, so you potentially can get over that in other ways. Boombat, I will say, is a good answer because when the Boombat goes for the disenchant effect to pop something, you can Gorgons it, making them lose that normal cast when they cast the Boombat. And Elechick, I think, is probably one of the other really strong answers. Because your opponent goes normal Elechick, you go Gorgons the Elechick, stop them from searching the Divine Range, you probably shut down a huge portion of their deck. So I will say Elechick's a good answer. Boombat is up there, but I don't think it quite either of these get to the Tad Puff, oh dear lord, I need to Gorgons it immediately. Q goes Cybermaul. If you disagree, remember I'm the only person that plays the card. Not anymore. We are significantly, this is back in April, but he's not the only person that plays Cybermaul anymore. But unfortunately, when you play Cybermaul, all the fleeces are already in your hand. So not necessarily need to be Gorgons. Also, if your opponent plays Cybermaul turn 1 to get a Cybermaul with 2 spirits from your deck, they're not even using Cybermaul to its best effect. So not always need to be Gorgons. Answers Galaxy. Dimax seems to love answering Galaxy and Gorgons going into these 2 threads. No. Galaxy is the most PTA-able Elestral next to Rabbit, probably, just for memes. But I don't think you always need to Gorgon's Gaze a Galaxy. It's just a 5 attacker in a lot of cases. Coder says Boombat after disenchants off itself. Again, really strong answer, but you don't always need to Gorgons it on the spot, so not better than Tadpuff. Snowlet after you see Ashbrow milled, but you don't need to Gorgons it on... See, this is weird, because you can Gorgon Snowlet on Resolution, but they're gambling already. So I don't think you need to Gorgon Snowlet ever. Maybe if you don't want them to get Ashbrow, and it's not on the spot, I need to Gorgons it always. So no, but close. Caleb says Waspire. If your opponent gets to a point where they have a Waspire with like 10 spirits on it to like OTK you, you probably should have Gorgon something way earlier in that combo. Seeing the writing on the wall, then letting them get to Waspire and potentially other cards that protect it. So no, Tadpuff still more scary. Spectaris have to try to save your foamy. I agree that I want to keep my foamy to cast something, and it's probably going to be an Eddy so that I can switch the Spectaris and swing back on my following turn, but that's a really expensive way to get to Eddy. If you already have like an Eddy or something in your hand, you don't mind letting the foamy go, you don't always need to Gorgons it, but decent response. Again, not on the spot, so still Tadpuff is scarier. Rip up on the full moon cast, except you just cast it in draw phase on turn 1 and you never get a chance to respond to GG, so doesn't count. Comalis, because he can never get the search off. Yeah, but it's not on the spot, because if you have no Nexus Bank, you don't need to do it. Eagle the Duck, Battle Step Foamy. Gotta kill any Foamy's dreams of being able to toolbox for 1+ Water Elestrals. Yeah, but it's not on the spot, like Gorgons-able, you need to Gorgon's Gaze it every time. Sometimes you want them to burn the extra spirit by casting more stuff off the Foamy, so not necessarily the most Gorgons-able Elestral. Chill-Lottle's real answer, no. Galaxy, no. GG, Boombat Disenchant again. Decent option, but not on the spot, not every single time contextually. Nexuser, it's a word, always feels good. After they Nexus, sure, but again, if they have no Nexus Bank or something else going on with their turn, like you don't always need to Gorgon's Gaze, so it's not always the most Gorgon's Gazeable Elestral. If it's not always the most Gorgon's Gazeable Elestral, it's not the most Gorgon's Gazeable Elestral. Ardbud, because no one lets you have fun in the game. Correct! Ardbud is pretty Gorgon's Gazeable, especially if you know about the Ardbud combo, and you want to stop the search on the normal cast, so that's reasonable, and also will stop them from comboing the rest of the turn if they're trying to combo. So if they go Artemis into Ardbud, yeah, generally that is a good answer, but the deck isn't super strong. There's other threats you might want to Gorgons instead, such as like the Aardvarm, if you know you can get over that to let them burn some more spirits in the middle of their combo. But close. I am not a Gorgon's Gazeable Elestral because I am not an Elestral. Rowan says Ash Rabbit, almost every deck, GGable Elestral. I think it's okay to GG a Rabbit if you're significantly ahead. Otherwise, it's the most PTA-able Elestral. If you Gorgon's Gaze a Rabbit turn 2, what are you actually trying to achieve? Because your opponent still has like 4 cards in hand. I don't think you always need to Gorgon's a Rabbit. In fact, most of the time I would avoid Gorgonsing a Rabbit over assuming they have other threats in their deck, especially going to game 2 or game 3 when you know what the threats in their deck are. And that extra card in hand turn 1 isn't as relevant like to Gorgons now as it might be later in the game. Winjin already knows never resolving if you're second, but they might just call it wrong. If they're gonna call it right, yeah, you can Gorgons it. But if you know they're gonna call it like blind, you don't need to Gorgons that. Champion Valkyries. No, maybe. I mean, maybe you do it before they go to cast their artifact so that they don't get the spirit healing. But yeah, stopping a search is, yes, good. Festus is okay. Stopping them from healing by casting artifacts with their underworld spirits is relevant for sure. I don't think you always need to Gorgons it, especially if you have big bodies on board that your Valkyries isn't getting over anytime soon. Extrameric said Arcolith. Yeah, that's a decent one to stop them from healing 3 spirits on the board by Gorgonsing it. But also, if you have like a shield or tsunami or something set, you can just respond to it more efficiently in other ways and get rid of it. Maybe shield not the best option, but like PTA dropping it to 4 attack could be relevant. Ari says Hydrake. That is a good option, but only if they are attacking you. You just Gorgons a Hydrake on cast. What are you doing? So, not the most Gorgons-able because we're not doing it immediately in Fear for Our Lives. Cryo Scorch, but you just have to Gorgons the Cryoburn when they do the discard trigger, and then they lose all their hand and it gets out with a smaller body. So close, but not quite. Panic. Gorgons 2 tap ups in the same turn. Yes, because you know they're up to no good, and you just if they're going tap up special, you Gorgons, and they go tap up special again. You know they're trying to do something you don't want them to do. Double Gorgons. Good job, Panic. Under the radar, Battlestep Spect. Attempting to swing into Galaxy. That's too specific. We've seen the Gorgon's Gaze option for Spectaris attacking to stop things like Foamy getting suppressed and stuff. True, but it's not always relevant because sometimes you just have a Necroth that's going to crash or something with a buff. Lavalith is a very good answer because you're going to lose Gorgons anyway. You might as well use it on the Lavalith to stop it. That is fair, but sometimes you just don't need to worry about losing one back row because they're going to hit like your bluff set Hurricane instead. So not always, but still a pretty decent answer. Phantom Arts going in Dallas Open. Werepup. Again, Werepup. They just do it in their draft step, so you never get a chance to Gorgons. And losses Galaxy every single time. Battleship Viserys Galaxy, again, Spectaris situation. And lastly, Hunter Surge going any Celestial disenchants off itself, so Boombat or Kite Might, plus any others that somehow find their way into lists. Yeah, but again, not always necessary. Again, if they're going for Tad buff, you Gorgons it immediately because otherwise you don't get a chance to respond to anything else they're going to do with that Tad buff. Going into like an Elichick, well, if they go Elichick and they go find Zeus and then you can Gorgons after they've played the Zeus and disenchant and stuff, not necessarily the most Gorgons-able Elestrals. So I'm going to caveat here, unless you can prove me wrong in the comments, I still think Tad buff is the most Gorgons-able Elestral because the second you see it played, you have to Gorgons it because the moment you give priority back to your opponent, they will ascend it into something more devastating and you'll be SOL on board every single time. There's no way you have PTA set in a 5 defense body and the Draking does nothing. But no, see a Tad buff, they're up to no good. Gorgons gate it immediately. Yeah, that is the double-decker Twitter thread bit that I'm doing today. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, Tad buff is definitely the most Gorgons-able Elestral, and I still think that's true in Firestorm. Spin-Imp gets there too, but you can let them burn some spirits with their combo and then hit the Spin-Imp. There's some other relevant things, but yeah. If you see a Tad buff get special, Gorgons it immediately. And additionally, iconic duos and Elestrals. Eddie, Ash have a pretty good answer, but I think ultimately Elichick and Zeus are the most iconic because how long that's been in the game and how frustrating and iconic to an extent that those cards were being slotted into so many other decks and tempo decks for how strong they were and how consistent and the amount of times you saw them played. Yeah, that is my bit for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.